Hey guys, we're here with Kevin, who just finished 9th place with Fluffal Niagara Regional. So close, but congrats. How are you liking the deck for the format, and why are you playing it?
I'm playing it because what I know is what I got. I've got a lot of experience playing it between MBT's online tournaments, which I topped a couple and I bubbled a few, and the previous regional where I went 6-3 and bubbled again. I've got a lot of experience barely missing out on things, so sort of this is kind of exactly the spot that I'm used to getting. For the format itself, I don't actually think it's very good. It can't run a lot of non-engine. It has to run a lot of internal gas. And it's got a couple of inconsistencies and issues that really hold it back. It also can't really be like a contender, because the moment it is, everyone just will put in troll and misdeals and I'll instantly lose. So like it's not the best deck, but it's a deck I have a lot of experience and fun piloting.
Awesome, well let's get right to the list.
Sure thing. So we got 3 Fluffal Penguin. This is the best card in the deck. It is a soft once per turn summon from hand that if you use it as fusion material, it just draws 2 and discards 2. So that means that you can resummon this over and over again, and you also get you basically get to reshape your hand the moment you fuse with it. So it's very, very strong when it comes to how much it does for the deck, since you'll be summoning it around 2 or 3 times in your first turn, and you want to be resolving its draw to effects both on your turn and your opponent's turn and your following turn. And that sort of gives you the momentum and advantage to be able to deal with your opponent. The next 3, that's the last 3. Next 3 is 3 Fluffal Dog. On normal or special, it searches. I need more copies of Toy Vendor. This gets me to bear, which is more copies of Toy Vendor. It's, I don't, any hand where I normal summon this, it's usually a sign that I've kind of don't have a good hand. But whenever this is special summoned, midway through the combo, because it triggers on special in hand, it's quite good. It's kind of why Penguin is insane. 3 bear, pitch to set vendor. It's extremely non-committal. It's like the most non-committal way to get to vendor because there's no way to ash it. Setting from deck is kind of a tricky thing for any player to interact with. And it's got a secondary effect that doesn't come up much. I contributed to add a poly back. It matters once or twice, but didn't come up this tournament. It's just more copies of Vendor, and Vendor's the best card in the deck. Speaking of which, Fluffal Dolphin is a custom card that was made by an insane person. But it's also terrible. It's this weird balance of broken and bad, where at one point, it sets Vendor from your graveyard to the field and then dumps any Fluffal or an Edge of Sabers, which is insane, but it also means it's dead if you don't have a Vendor in your graveyard. So it's just a vanilla if you don't open it. If you don't open like goods or a way to send Vendor from field or hand to grave. So it's incredible, and it's the second part of the Bahamut Shark with the Penguin, but unfortunately it just kind of has this weird issue where sometimes I'll lose because I only drew Dolphin and I have no way to send Vendor to grave. We're gonna go Fluffal Wings. This is the silly +3 thing where you banish it and a Fluffal from grave to draw a card, and then you can choose to destroy the Toy Vendor on your field to draw an additional card, which searches the vet with the Vendor because that's not a once per turn effect. The card obviously gets set up very easily with Dolphin now, so it's absolutely nutty, but again, you only ever need one of it because it doesn't do anything else. And when you want to set it up, you have the tool to set it up. You have Fluffal Sheep. This card is an extender that you can special if you control a Fluffal. Again, it's a one-of because I've got so many vendor searches and so many ways to search it. It also can bounce any Fluffal back to hand to summon it again, which means you can be like special dog into the zone cross sheet points to, while it also points to a fusion monster, summon Penguin back, bounce the dog, summon back, summon an Edge Imp, link some stuff off, penguin got turned back on again, so you can summon the dog that you just bounced back again. So this is like 3 or 4 material by itself when you use it to mess around with your cross sheet. And it's also a level 2, which will come up a little later. And then the final Fluffal monster is Octopus, which is a grind game card that allows me to return banished monsters when I use it as fusion material. It also allows me to target a monster and add it back to my hand. A Fluffal or Frightful monster, Fluffal or Edgent monster, and return it back to my hand, which is really strong because it just sort of means I can grind forever, and because it's a water, I can add it back off Toad, which means I can add my anything in my graveyard back with Toad, essentially. It can also have some additional utility in getting back things that were banished by Bestials or things that were unfortunately banished by runic spells that you really need. So the card is very, very strong. I'm just gonna give myself a little more space here, if you don't mind. Then we have 3 Edgent Chain. I'm going to get into a problem with this card specifically that I have that is a little strange, but it's busted. Sent from hand to field to grave, add a Frightful card. It lets you access Patchwork, and Patchwork lets you access it. It's extremely powerful. I don't really have much to say about it until we get to Patchwork. 2 Egypt Scythe. This is one of the most interesting cards Konami's ever designed. It's a hand trap fusion that only works on the opponent's turn. So you reveal it in a Fluffal and fuse, and then in the graveyard it is graveyard protection for the Frightful fusion monsters. That means that you can essentially use this to blank normals or completely shut down certain things that you need to remove before your opponent uses it as a material. For example, I played against Milano's Vanquished Soul, and I kept sniping the summon before he could make the rock of the Vanquisher. And because the thing that it summons is non-targeting, he couldn't like spin it back because I would just hit the thing that it bounced. So it kind of creates a lot of weird, awkward situations, but it also is kind of a vanilla in the hand. So it's something you want to set up. I play 2 in main and 1 inside, so that when I'm going second, I'm more likely to see it, and when I'm going first, I'm slightly less likely to see it. It's not bad because it can still be used as fusion material, like through the regular means, but I would prefer to see it more going second than first, so that allows me to do that. Sabers is important because it's the only edge imp that can actually be accessed by Vendor and Dog and Dolphin, even though this is a new card, so they should have just let you. But it allows you to set up the top card of your deck for the Vendor stack, so you can guarantee what you're hitting. It's a graveyard extension that gives you a lot of versatility, but it's most important because it's the only name that all of these can get access to, meaning that if you're really desperate to fuse, you need to play it. And then the best Fluffal monster of all time, Eldritch the Golden Lord. Eldritch interacts with your toy vendor in a way that is really fascinating. So going first, it's just a free thing that you can pitch for the vendor and then send the vendor to summon it. So it's just a free extender that allows you to sort of convert bear or heart-drawn vendors into copies of Fluffal Dolphin that are live because the vendor is guaranteed to be in the graveyard. And going second, it allows you to take all the hard ones return spells you have or copies of vendors that you've drawn and turn it into removal. And say, for example, you pitch vendor with Eldritch, you're sending something, and then vendor is searching bear, which sets the another vendor, and then the Eldritch sends that vendor to summon itself as 35. And can't be destroyed by card effects. And since it also can't be destroyed by your card effects, it means it can sponge the Scrap Dragon Pop effect of the Cruel Whale, which means that you get a lot of utility out of it. And it plus Cruel Whale, when the Cruel Whale's boosted itself and Eldritch has boosted itself, is 35 and 39. So it's really easy to just kill your opponent. once you get that established. Okay. Next is Herald of Orange Light. These are all fairies. There's 13 fairies, 15 counting Orange Light. It's just a good card. Merly, I'm using Sprint to send Merly so that I can return my whale to the extra deck and then get a Dragostapeli out of it. So it lets me play more cards in my extra deck. The Sprint and the Dragostapeli are 2 additional interruptions because there's generally a rank 4 on my field. And then that allows me to have a little extra interaction while also giving me more extra deck space. Then Foolish Burial Goods, best card in the deck. It sends Vendor, which means it automatically makes Dolphin live, which means it's the best version of Vendor. Most people play 2 of them in decks that aren't this, but you got to play 3 of it in this because it's just that much more powerful. Star of the show, Toy Vendor. Soft once per turn, discard, summon, discard, draw a card if it's Fluffal, summon it. If not, I don't usually care about the top decks. Like sometimes it matters, and sometimes it's sacky as hell. But the real meat of it is the free discard, and then the fact that it searches when sent to grave. Patchwork doesn't really need explanation. Brandon goes over it, but I do want to highlight a problem with the deck, which is that Chain and Patchwork and Scythe are sort of in this, they're only interacting with each other. You can't really get access to these with the rest of the Fluffal package. So it's kind of this gap in the deck's consistency, which I try to fill with Foolish, where sometimes, you know, Foolish I can dump Wings, I can dump Eldritch. I can also dump Chain and then revive the Chain with Sheep, which means it's an additional way to get a really, really jank version of Chain that can get me access to Patchwork, which can get me access to Edge of Scythe. But these little things allow for some small interactions, and I can sometimes make sort of less. Sorry, I need to find my words for a second. Sort of less committal plays. Royal Penguin's Gardens. It's a tanky that searches the best monster in my deck, and it also has an effect discard by revealing the penguin and changing its level its hand, which means you can like open Garden plus Chain and then reveal the penguin that you just search off Chain and pitch Chain and then get Patchwork. So like the discard effects of the tanky for penguin actually, it can also resolve that. So it's quite strong, and because it sticks around, it can be used for Eldritch or it can be used for whale pops. 2 poly, doesn't really need more explanation. It's poly, you need it to resolve Patchwork. Fright for Fusion, it's Miracle Fusion. It's sort of a way to push for game or push for extension. Fright for Repair is this deck's extension. I think this card is sort of the secret bet sauce between what makes a good Fluffal and a bad Fluffal player. Because you can send this from deck to grave with the whale, and it's free extension from your hand and while it's in the graveyard. But sometimes you open Patchwork and Penguin and you want to go whale, search this with the Chain, draw 2, discard 1, and then repair with the thing of the whale set up from your extra deck. You can return it to summon back the penguin so that you can play completely without normal summoning. And that way you can have less fear of imperm and also have a huge ceiling, and it's much harder to interact with. And then we got Called By and Triple Book of Moon. This deck's got a weakness to imperm when it doesn't have the ability to fuse, so I play Book of Moon as my non-engine. And Called By, I'm just scared to death of Droll and Shifter, so I gotta play Called By. Same with the Orange Light. Okay, extra? Yep. So for the extra, I have go with the fusions first. 2 Cruel Whale. This is actually 3 Cruel Whale thanks to the Dragostapeli and Sprint. when it's summoned, it can pop a card on both players' fields non-targeting, and because you've got your hand trap, you can do that on your opponent's turn 1 or during their turn when you've set it up. And it sort of is this jump scare that kind of and because it's non-targeting, there's a lot they can't do about it. And then it also has the additional effect to dump from extra deck or deck to graveyard to boost the fusion monster. So for example, I boosted a guard, and it's any fusion monster, so like I boosted a Guardian Chimera to 49.50 at one point because it increases by half of the fusion monster's original attack. Tiger is the only other Fright for Fusion that I'm maining, or that I'm playing. It can destroy cards up to the amount of fusion material used, which means it's a big bomb, but it's also the only thing that this can't destroy Vendor if there's not something on the opponent's side of the field. But sometimes I need to destroy Vendor by fusing, so Tiger is the way for me to do that. Dragostapelia with the Sprint Merly setup, it's just interruption, and changing things levels is really nice right now because of both cash and sprite. So it's just a simple interaction, but it also is really a good meta call. And then Guardian Chimera is a huge bomb, and it's not a fiend like these other ones, it's a beast, so it doesn't lose to Tipu. Then we have Bahamut Shark, 2 water, level 4 waters is really easy. I play under Nib like 80% of my games. Toad, same thing. Also, something to mention, because it adds back a water, I mentioned the octopus thing earlier, but it also means that I can have 0 Fluffals in hand and still have an Egypt Scythe live, because the Toad will add back an octopus or the penguin when it goes, and then all of a sudden the hand interruption isn't available to me again to just dump the whale on and draw a bunch of cards off the penguin. Tornado, it's just the generic rank 4 that I decided to play because I need one on my field to detach from, because the Toad won't have any material, and the Bahamut Shark generally is gone. So it's sort of the only decent rank 4 that has any sort of interruption, because there's a lot of continuous spells and field spells that are kind of important for the meta at the moment. And also it can pop my own toy vendor, so there are plays where I go penguin dog without normal summoning, get bear, set vendor, pop with tornado that actually do come up. Baguska, this deck makes rank 4s really easily. Nothing in this deck blocks, and if I'm up against Branded or Flu, I can just sit on Baguska. And also I can do Sprint Baguska IP, which is 2 interruptions underneath Baguska. So a lot of times that can really get people, and then if I IP away the Baguska, it turns back on the Dragostapelia. I only really do that when my Toad has been used, though. And then Zeus, it's Zeus. Though it does have one funny interaction where the other effect of Zeus can attach Toy Fender to it if someone kills anything on my field that isn't the Zeus. So all of a sudden I can make my entire deck live because I Zeus, which is very funny. Cross Sheep, this card was made for this deck. It's just really stupid. It lets me loop Penguin over and over again, and that's all it really needs to do. Just be careful if you're reviving Octo with this. This needs to be the first thing in the chain link, because Octo is a win effect. Masquerena, Unicorn, Underworld Goddess. Yeah, these don't really need explanation. Underworld I chose over Apo, and it kind of came back to bite me, but I think I don't think I would have gone as far had I not put it in. Over the Apo, I just think Apo's not great this format because anyone can summon a Fenrir, but this can check Fenrir because you just use it as link material before they're able to activate it, and then it's not around to do the banish. And then Sprint for the Merly play.
Yep, lost this time.
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick with this.
No
This deck actually doesn't have much potential for siding.
Yeah, no need to, yeah. Okay.
So,
to the side deck?
Yeah, this deck doesn't have much space for siding, so a lot of this is super generic. The Egypt Scythe, again, I mentioned the 2 versus 3 thing. Pank, it's just good removal and hard to deal with. I didn't really side it much though. Ash for branded and for niche matchups, I just decided to side it against Flu. Radiant, I was scared to death of Arise Heart and also Borland, so I decided to just side a Kaiju. It should be Gamseel because you can add that back from Toad, and also Toad contributed hand to negate something, but I just didn't have the funds for the rebuy Gamseels. 3 Dark Ruler, it's Dark Ruler, it's a good card. Twin Twisters and a Change of Heart, which should come up quite a bit.
Awesome. Well,
But yeah, siding's super generic because you can only side like 3 to 5 cards out in any given matchup because the engine space is so large.
amazing. Thank you so much for the deck profile. Congrats again. Any last shoutouts?
Shout out to Hanko for both the profile he gave of my 6-3 run at the Toronto Regional last week. And
I believed
for
in this guy.
hooking me up with the deck box because of the time win. It was a lot of
nice of
fun. Shout out to the Necrofusion Discord and Skyhawk, who we're keeping it down and we're making sure that this deck gets a lot of love.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks, Kev.